Hello, good evening, or good morning, YouTube. This is the latest that I have ever uploaded anything, or the earliest, depending on how you look at it. But I am just now starting to see some stuff coming across Twitter and social media about the very first critical reactions to the Rise of Skywalker, and I couldn't leave well enough alone. I had to post my reactions to the reactions because oh my god, it's about to blow up bigger than Justice League did. The critics that have been defending it, that have been defending the decisions of The Last Jedi, that have been defending the decisions of Lucasfilm, that have been actively out, and we're going to get into more of this in a second, that have been criticizing the fan base for the movie that we didn't like, as though, or our toxicity is the reason, like, they're blaming us over and over again, are they're now coming out and saying that this movie's terrible. And the biggest shill of a critic who has been nothing but mindlessly drinking the Kool-Aid and constantly lashing out at anyone that says anything negative about Lucasfilm and Disney, Scott Mendleson put out a tweet 2 hours ago, or 2.5 hours ago, that says, and I quote, "At worst, I expected the Rise of Skywalker hashtag to be a well-made movie that I didn't like, or whose story choices I disagreed with. I was not expecting a genuinely bad movie with video game plotting, thin characters, weak action, and endless exposition of no consequence. Heartbreaking. A genuinely bad movie with video game plotting, thin characters, weak action, and endless exposition of no consequence." Kind of sounds like Force Awakens, doesn't it? Yeah, so that is his initial reaction, and I saw that, and just didn't know what to think of it at first, because I'm like, wait a second, is Scott Mendelson, who loves The Last Jedi and has been criticizing the critics of Last Jedi, if he hated this movie, is it possible that he hated it because it was actually kind of good? It was actually decent Star Wars? And then he follows it up by saying, in very typical condescending, combative, toxic Scott Mendelson, he says that he follows it up with, in the end, so Rise of Skywalker, in the end, it was Star Wars fans that killed Star Wars. And I suppose that I can't really know the context of exactly what he means by that until he writes up his full piece, which I'm sure Jeff Hicks and the world-class bullshitters will cover better than I can. But I caught this right now, and I know there's nothing up about it. Nobody's talking about it on YouTube just yet, so I normally don't post stuff this early, but I had to come and talk about it. But there's also somebody else who apparently is posting really early stuff. It's all pretty vague, but John Campea is another one. These are some familiar names if you guys are in the Fandom Menace and have been following along with a lot of the media and a lot of the articles and the content that world-class bullshitters put out. But now he's also saying the same thing. He's saying that this movie's bad too. I can only think of parallels to Justice League. This is looking more and more like Justice League all over again. Because Batman vs. Superman wasn't hated by the critics, but the fans hated it, and the critics couldn't figure out why. And all of a sudden, like, all of the hatred that was dumped on Batman vs. Superman, or all the hatred that people felt towards Batman vs. Superman and Zack Snyder for what he did with the characters and the story, they get to Justice League and they try and be a little bit more all-encompassing. They take a tone shift and a backtrack to, okay, well, they didn't like what would, like, some of the decisions that we went with, so let's just go with a safer route here, but we're not going to actually address any of the problems that have actually occurred in the story so far. Like, we're still not going to treat Superman with any kind of respect. We're still going to make Batman and Lex Luthor seem like very weird character versions of themselves. It's just, I have a whole video on Justice League, and actually how Justice League was even better than I think it gets a lot of shit for. But the point that I'm making here is that the critics were on board with BVS, and then BVS blew up, and they had a huge backlash. And then all of a sudden, Justice League comes out, and now all of the hatred gets dumped on Justice League, when in actuality, Justice League was just following the story that Batman vs. Superman set up. I mean, you can't make a good story out of a... You can't take a good third half out of something that's already been ruined by the time it gets there. And this movie is even worse, because The Last Jedi was like the worst movie that you could ever have. It completely ripped apart the story so that JJ probably has to build a brand new one, but he has to do it with the characters that he has left, and he has to bring back Emperor Palpatine because Snoke got killed off. I mean, it was always going to be a disaster, but it's all going to get dumped on this last movie as though this last movie is like some... The critics are going to do this. The fans are not going to buy it, but the critics are going to say that for some reason this movie's terrible, and it's because of the toxic fans that, you know, that wanted these different things about Star Wars. They couldn't handle it, and it's going to be like, no, actually, this movie's terrible because Rian Johnson completely destroyed what semblance of a plot there actually was to begin with. And so JJ, who's not a talented enough story writer, and is not a talented enough director, he couldn't rescue what was... he could make something out of the ashes that was... the ashes that were given to him when Rian Johnson was done making his movie. So, I kind of gone all over the place, but I'm just sitting here and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm so looking forward to seeing more of this fallout. Because for the last 2 years, I've been making videos about Star Wars, and I never did anything like that before this came up. And I know there's plenty of other people on YouTube that have made it their living and made it their career out of this movement, like being part of this nerd culture war that turned into something way bigger than it ever had to be. But it was because we were being criticized, we were being condescended to, and we were being dismissed as just, you know, incels, toxic, racist, sexist, all kinds of insulting things, when all we were doing is being passionate fans that cared about the quality of the story. That's always been what this has been about. And so, to see at the end of the day, the people that have been attacking us finally admit that maybe maybe the hill that they were standing on, maybe the soapbox that they were standing on is not quite as strong as they thought, but I am looking forward to the day that maybe they might come around and maybe they might say, you know what, we were wrong and I was wrong to say some of the things that I did. And you know what, if that ever happens, I'll accept people's apology. I will. And I hope everyone else that has been a part of this at the same time as I have will also say that. So thank you guys for watching. Check out this stuff and look forward to it with you. I look forward to seeing what everybody else in the Fandom Menace, who's a lot bigger than I am, has to say about what's coming out in the next couple of days, because it is going to be one hell of a week. You know, fuck Force Fridays. This is the Force Friday that I'm looking forward to, because I'm looking forward to seeing just how badly this blows up. Can it outdo Game of Thrones? Can it outdo the backlash for Game of Thrones? I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there, and it's going to be such a disaster to watch, and I can't wait. So, I'll talk to you guys next time.